All right, guys, just want to welcome back to your Everything College Football podcast. Today I'll be doing my preview and prediction for the Birmingham Bowl between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, two teams that made big waves in the respective conferences, both playing spoiler tremendously to the playoff. Proactive Stadium in Birmingham is the site of this contest. 2.5-point favorites are the Yellow Jackets. 51.5 is the total. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, December 27th. Getting things started with the Georgia Tech offense on the Vandy defense. When it comes to the Yellow Jackets and Buster Faulkner, I think he's done a great job this year. I love watching this team play. I think the play calling is just so sporadic, and it's just all over the place. It's beautiful to watch. You've seen it against Miami, a game I picked them to win, and then against Georgia, a game I thought that they would cover in, but they probably should have won that one. Had a 17-point lead. Went to, 8 or 9 overtime. So the Yellow Jackets can clearly hang with the big boys. Then Haynes King didn't play in the game against Notre Dame, so it's a bit of a tougher effort there. This team has proven they can run the ball on tougher competition. Over 2,200 yards this year, comes out to about 186 yards per game. Jamal Haynes, the lead runner, 808 and 9 touchdowns. And, of course, King, 578 and 11 touchdowns from him. What a great veteran they have here at quarterback. I know he's looking to make up for that mistake he made against Georgia. That fumble he had that pretty much costed him the game. If he doesn't do that, they probably win it. It's going to be hard for him to let down. So this is a veteran guy who's also thrown for almost 200 yards per game, 11 touchdowns, only one pick. He had big shoulder problems, so he hasn't really thrown many passes. Like 4 straight games, he didn't really do much through the air. So those numbers might be a little bit inflated, but last pick he had was back in August. And then against Georgia, he threw the ball a lot, had 300-plus yards and 2 scores. So this is a really good quarterback level, what he does from a dual threat perspective. And you look at the receiving group, looks like they're going to be down Eric Singleton, Malik Rutherford, their top 2 pass catchers, both transferring out. Singleton's already committed. Rutherford hasn't, I don't believe, at this moment in time. So I don't assume that he's going to play. That would leave Avery Boyd at tight end next up, Chase Lane at receiver. He's got 244 and 3 touchdowns. Bailey Stockton. It looks like Jackson Hawes will be playing at tight end. It's not a very deep group, and this is not a team that throws the ball a whole lot. But downfield, they're probably not going to be able to do much if they don't have these 2 guys ready to go, because they're phenomenal playmakers. They're also big in terms of play calling, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of misdirection, a lot of motion, and those guys are heavily involved in those. So it's going to be a big loss in more ways than one. I don't think it'll significantly affect them because it's still a team that can win with a power rushing attack between the 2 Haynes at quarterback and running back. And you're going up against a Vanderbilt defense that, on the stat sheet's not the greatest, 136.6 rushing yards allowed per game. South Carolina really had their number, and Tennessee almost had 300 yards rushing as well. And then the only other game they allowed was 200-plus to Missouri in a game they almost won. Other than that, they've played some really good offenses, and they've really been able to hold them in check. 104 yards for Texas, not much there. Bama was held to under 100 yards. What they did against Auburn. It's not a great offense, but they held them to 7 points and less than 100 yards rushing. They have a nice running back in Jarquez Hunter. And then LSU, 139 yards allowed in that game. Isn't great because that rushing tech is not great. But this is a very competitive defense. They've played some very tough programs throughout the year. Of course, they beat the Tide. Almost pulled off the upset against Texas with a late surge in that one. South Carolina game was a little ugly. Got out to a big lead against Tennessee, and then they hung in there against LSU. So, this team, this program's really come a long way because they used to lose to those teams 50-0 each week. And this defense has been a big reason why. Corday Snyder is going to be the top edge for them. Demarion Thomas, Miles Capers, Yolani Atara. Those guys are going to be the leaders up front. No one's really a standout for them. They just collectively play strong defense. Capers has 7 tackles for loss. Snyder with 5.5. Those are probably the best 2 players for him. And then in the middle of the defense, you got Brian Longwell, who's really emerged as a great linebacker for them. 7.5 TFL, leads the team with 80 tackles as well. Langston Patterson next to him with another 74 tackles. Very happy with what this defense has been able to accomplish under Clark Leah this year, down to 23.1 points per game allowed. He gave up over 36 a season ago. And this does become a fairly better matchup for them if they're not going to have those downfield targets to work with, because the secondary's been a little sluggish. 238 yards per game allowed, over 67% completion rating. King, he's great with efficiency, so that's an area that's going to be very favorable for him. But they've faced some incredibly tough passing attacks, over the last month of the season. So it's, maybe a little bit skewed because this team's still a work in progress, and for the things they've been able to accomplish this year, I think it's very impressive. At corner though, Martell Height, pretty solid player. Colby Taylor, Jalen Lackey, the other corners, not all that good. Randon Fontanetti at safety has been a phenomenal player for them. Really good run defender in the slot position. CJ Taylor, DeRicky Wright. Looks like both these guys are going to play. Phenomenal safety duo here. They're great in coverage, and Wright is a big-time playmaker against the run. So I like what this defense brings to the table. Great offensive line for Georgia Tech. They proved it against Georgia. They can be physical against anybody. Miami too. I mean, those are two of the talented, most talented D lines you're going to see all year, and they really, had no issues at all with them. So this team, it's hard to put them behind the sticks. Again, Faulkner has great play calling. I definitely wonder what they'll do about those top two pass catchers. Probably won't affect them. You're just going to see more run. That's totally fine. But I think in certain areas, it might actually burn them because you want to be able to throw the ball downfield and put that pressure on the defense. But I think this will play into Vandy's favor just a little bit. I don't think the Yellow Jackets, though, will be phased too much about those pass catchers, and the books clearly agree with them still being favored in this game. They move to a Vanderbilt offense, putting up 26.7 points per game, 319 yards per contest. Isn't a great mark. It's 123rd in FBS. But like I alluded to a minute ago, this is a team that's played some really tough defenses, and it's, been a nice, efficient attack, 5.5 yards per play almost. But they're not out here lighting up the world. Outside of the Alabama game, they've been consistent, though. They're not putting up large amount of numbers because they're not on the field for that many plays. It's just been the style for them this year. So I think these numbers are a little bit skewed, and I think it doesn't attest to how good they actually have been. When it comes to running the ball, only about 140 yards per game. Cedric Alexander, the top running back, 554 and 6 scores. Of course, you have a phenomenal quarterback in Diego Pavia, 716 and 6 touchdowns leading the way. And then, as a passer, he's also been great. 59%. Could be better, but only 4 picks, 17 touchdowns, 2,100 yards through the air. So another quarterback who's got great abilities as a dual threat player. He's going to get a lot of touches. And he's a great decision maker as well. You've seen what they were able to accomplish against Bama, where it seemed like they couldn't get stopped running the ball. I know they only had 166 yards on 54 carries, but they stayed ahead of the sticks that entire contest. They legitimately put up 40 points. I know they had 1 pick six. They still scored 30-plus on this defense, though, and that's phenomenal. They don't have a single game of 200-plus or even 150-plus, or only one game of 150-plus that is against the FBS opponent. So it's not ideal, but this is an attack that's hard to keep off the field, though. I think the numbers kind of lose how good this offense has been, and they've been competitive for the most part. They've been very resilient in second halves as well. Let's think about Pavia. He's incredibly difficult to make plays against. Eli Stowers at tight end, 583 yards and 4 touchdowns. Junior Sherrill, Quincy Skinner were your top 2 receivers. 360-plus yards for the both of them, combined 5 touchdowns. Not eye-popping production, but this unit gets the job done. I think their offensive line is a big reason for that as well. 44% on third downs. Again, this team's in a lot of those third and short, so it's really easy for them to convert. I know that their right tackle, he's in the portal. Looks like he's already signed, so he's not going to be playing in this game. It doesn't appear. Gunnar Hansen. That's pretty much it. Nobody else is going to be out in this game for Vanderbilt. It's a pretty complete roster, it appears, unless you have some late opt-outs, which I don't think that's going to happen. With a couple of their top prospects like Stowers and Wright. Don't think that'll happen, so I think it'll be a complete roster for Vanderbilt. Going up against a Georgia Tech defense that I think is actually pretty solid. On the stat sheet, they're giving up almost 25 points per game. But they've really showed some muscle throughout the year. I know NC State, though, uncharacteristically, ran for 253 yards on them. They gave up 400-plus total yards to North Carolina, and it was pretty much a shootout. Other than that, though, this defense has been pretty solid. Cam Wardy put up some numbers playing from behind, held that rushing attack in check, didn't give up really many big plays in the passing game. I think there was one early on. That was about it. Against Georgia, they were also playing from behind. Couldn't run the ball, though. Zeke Biggers will be playing for Tech, so that's great news on the interior for them. Romello Height, one of their outstanding outside linebackers, though, he is transferring again. Came over from USC and had a really good year. Big loss there, but he was a phenomenal player for them, so we'll see what they can do to replace his production. Jordan Van Denberg on the interior, phenomenal breakout player. Joshua Robinson, Micaiah Scott, and then Kevin Harris. Thomas Gore as well, nice big body in the middle. Pretty good defensive line here. I like what they bring to the table. Do have some injuries to monitor. I think it's kind of confirmed at this point, though, that their top linebacker will be out. And Kyle Eford. That's not great. I mean, he's a real tone setter for them, leading tackler. This is a guy you want to go to battle with, especially in games like this. Phenomenal player there. They also lost one of their starting safeties. Tay Seymour won't be playing. I know the cornerback room is pretty beat up as well. They've had a couple weeks to get ready and get healthy, so I think they'll be fine. Amari Harvey, Warren Burrell, Rodney Shelley, all those guys should be good to go. Zachary Tobe as well, so I think it'll be a full hands-on-deck unit in the back end for Georgia Tech. And they also have another safety in Clayton Powell-Lee, and then Miles Brooks as well. He hasn't really played all that great, especially in terms of tackling and coverage. He can make a play from time to time. I like what this Georgia Tech defense can bring to the table, though. 225 yards per game through the air, only 5 picks. Those are the secondary. Has at times let down, but I think these corners play very well, and I think the Miami game kind of proved how good they can play. And even though Georgia playing from behind really started picking them apart, again, they were kind of hobbled in that game. And then Syracuse put on a clinic early on in the year. Vanderbilt's not going to do that to them. The misdirection is going to be something to watch. This is a complex scheme for Vanderbilt as well. This is just a fun game all around. I like what Vanderbilt brings to the table. Looking at the team comparisons and the final prediction, a lot of evens here. I think the secondaries both kind of even, kind of probably in a bad way. Both of them kind of give up a little bit of yardage. Don't make the greatest of plays, even though I think Vanderbilt has the far better safety duo. Better cornerback room for GT. Offensive lines are both equally as good. Both of these groups really paved the way, and they've proven they can be physical against some top-notch opponents. And then at quarterback, both of them are phenomenally impressive when it comes to being a dual-threat player. They're both gritty. They're both tough. A lot of respect being shown to both opponents here. I think at running back, Georgia Tech will go from the edge there. Wide receiver, clear advantage if those top two are indeed out for the Yellow Jackets. I think D-line and linebacker. I'll go ahead and give Vanderbilt the edge there. Final prediction for me as underdogs, I'll take Vanderbilt. I think this will be a higher scoring affair, 38-34, and I think it's totally possible, though. Both teams just look to bleed clock and, hog time of possession. I think that's where this total could potentially, be under in play, and I think it'll probably be low scoring for a majority of this game. Then you'll just start seeing big plays left and right. A lot of these teams can throw haymakers. This will be a great game. Both of these teams are identical at all position groups, it seems, and they're also very identical in what they did in their own conference to shake up the CFP picture tremendously. Vanderbilt was a cover machine this year against pretty much everybody. Georgia Tech knocked off Miami, helped knock them out of the CFP, and almost put an end to Georgia's run potentially as well. So both of these teams are very impressive. No slouch here. Both very physical in the trenches, and they both have a dual-threat quarterback. Both of these teams will live ahead of the sticks. This will be a dogfight. It's going to be a very interesting one. Low confidence points. I got like 2 points on Vanderbilt. I think the money line's the best play, though. This will be a great game. Can't wait to see how this one plays out in Birmingham on Friday. I'll stick with Vanderbilt, though. But again, this is a complete toss-up. Wouldn't be shocked one bit if the Jackets got the job done. Should be closer 4 quarters and potentially a little bit of overtime as well. It's going to be for today's episode. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.